Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much indeed for that warm welcome. We're here for one very simple reason. We're here having a referendum because we've had enough of our political class giving away our birthright to control and run our own country. And I must say, the way this campaign has begun, I see those that wish us to remain, or should we call them perhaps the Romanians? It always gets me in trouble with that one, but never mind. But we see them lining up, don't we, and telling us that if we weren't part of this union, we couldn't do business with them, we'd be worse off. We've seen Tony Blair telling us... Is Mr. Blair unpopular now? We see the Welsh First Minister, Carwyn Jones. Gosh, he really is unpopular, isn't he? We see Carwyn Jones telling us that if we weren't part of this European Union, all farming in Wales would cease. We see the Education Secretary today telling us that our young people will lose their future. And what we're seeing is the establishment lining up on one side, and I would now characterize this referendum, it's very simple. It is the political class against the ordinary, decent men and women of this country. It's the people versus the politicians. And you know, they say never trust a politician. Well, there's one politician, in fact, it's not just him, it's his entire family that I'm going to talk about. And he comes from South Wales. And 40 years ago, he was one of the leaders of saying that Britain should not be part of the European Economic Community. It would be bad for our economy. It would be bad for our democracy. It would be bad for our relationship with the Commonwealth and the wider world. And this time, the man that was against membership of this European club, the man that wanted to abolish the House of Lords. Come on, get on with it. Yes, I'm talking about Lord Kinnock. Now, I knew that one would work. I somehow knew that one would work. And we've got people like Kinnock and the Kinnock family. And frankly, what we're seeing, particularly here in Wales, are a political class, are people working for the Quangos, are people, yes, they're benefiting from what they call European money. But ladies and gentlemen, there is no such thing as European money. It's our money. It's our money that comes back to this country. And it's rather like saying, isn't it? Give me £20, I'll give you £10 back and tell me how much better off you are. Well, the point is the £10 comes back to our political class, but it's the rest of us. It's those of us that are taxpayers. It's those of us that are running businesses that are suffering so grievously. And my goodness me, hasn't this part of the world suffered grievously? We're told by Mr. Cameron and Westminster, we're told by Carwyn Jones in the Welsh Assembly in Cardiff that they've got the interests of the Welsh people and the Welsh voters at heart. Well, think about this. When Carwyn Jones became the First Minister in Wales, there were 9 plants in South Wales manufacturing steel. Today, there is 1 plant in South Wales manufacturing steel, and that is very seriously in doubt. And what we have done to an industry that is not just important for South Wales in terms of its economy, in terms of people's jobs, but actually what we're talking about is a vital national strategic industry. What we have done, given to us by the European Union, worsened by George Osborne, who I think is the worst Chancellor of modern times, what we've done is to give the steel industry, to give them energy costs that are exorbitantly expensive at the same time as the Americans went for shale gas and the Indians and Chinese went for coal. We have disadvantaged South Wales's biggest single industry. And when the Chinese, because of an economic downturn, decide to dump their product on the market to make now even Port Talbot perhaps, face closure or at least partial closure, what does David Cameron say? What does Carwyn Jones say? What do any of them say? There's nothing they can say, because there's nothing, folks, we can do as a nation, because we don't control the steel industry. We don't control the South Wales fishing industry. And we finish up at a place like this where actually most of our businesses here are small and medium-sized businesses. Most of our businesses are run by men and women who are taking a risk with their own money. Most of them don't export to Europe or anywhere else in the world, and yet, as a nation that does about 10% of its business in export to Europe, we are lumbered by 100% of the regulations that come from Brussels. And the time has come, before this all blows away this evening. And by the way, you know that yesterday was Storm Katie. Well, in 3 storms' time, it'll be the letter N. And the public have voted, and it's going to be called Storm Nigel. And I'm very much hoping it blows in Strasbourg when the Parliament's in session. The point is, the only people that should be in control of our destiny, of our democracy, of our economy, of our industries, are us. The only people to govern Britain should be the British people themselves. Now, we're told constantly by Cameron and by Nick Clegg and Ken Clarke and Kinnock and Mandelson and all of them, we're told that Britain isn't big enough, that Britain isn't strong enough to run our own affairs and make our own trade deals. What they mean is they don't think Britain is good enough to run her own country. And the way we win this referendum is to reach out to all ages, all classes, all ethnicities in this country, and to say to them, do you believe in Britain? And I'm asking you tonight, do you believe in Britain? Yes! Do you believe we're good enough to run our own country? Yes! Do you believe we're good enough to make our own laws? Yes! And do you agree with me that it's vital that part of running our own country is controlling our own borders? Yes! Because Mr. Cameron has decided that he will fight this referendum on the issue of security. He will say that we are safer by being part of the European Union. Well, I'm very sorry, but the free movement of people across Europe, the opening up of the Schengen zone, has meant that not only do we have free movement for nice people and for good people, we have free movement for bad people. The free movement of people in Europe has meant the free movement of criminal traffickers. It has meant the free movement of Kalashnikov guns. It has meant the free movement of terrorists. And the first duty of a British government is to defend the realm and to defend its people. And the most vital thing we could do to protect this country against this horrendous terrorist wave that we're seeing is to take back control of our country and its borders, and to make sure that the only people that come into Britain are the ones that we allow to come. And there is perhaps, even if you take out terrorism, we allow people to come to Britain from other European countries who already have serious criminal convictions. And I want us to become like Australia. Let's have an Australian-style point system. Let's say that those that come to Britain who've got trades and skills to bring can help make this a better community, are welcome in limited numbers. But let's make sure that, like the Australians, at least the modern Australians, we say that criminals are not welcome. let's... There'll be an Aussie in the audience that complains later, but I really couldn't care less. And let's make sure that people that cannot claim benefits for 5 years until they've paid into this country and until they've proved they can be good, law-abiding citizens. And there's one other aspect. There's one other aspect to this security problem that Mr. Cameron wished to highlight that I want to share with you. Exactly 100 years ago, the women in this country went out to work in the factories, the munitions factories, the supplies for the British Army, Navy, and increasingly Air Force that were fighting a great war. It was the first time women had earned proper wages. It was the first time women had been on their own to the pub. It was very quickly the first time that women got the vote. We've been through 100 years of female emancipation and liberation. And I put it to you that the mistakes of Mrs. Merkel are now threatening all of that. What we saw outside that train station in Cologne on New Year's Eve was, I think, truly and genuinely shocking. I am not saying that we're not immune from such problems in this country. We've seen some terrible scandals that have happened here. But to me, if you allow the unlimited access of huge numbers of young males into the European continent who come from countries where women are at best second-class citizens, don't be surprised if scenes that we saw in Cologne don't happen more often. But for goodness sake, do we want those young men within 5 years to have EU passports and all to be able to come to our country and to reverse 100 years of female liberation and to change our entire way of life? Surely the answer must be no. It is the job of a British government to make our own laws, to control our own borders, and it's about time we started putting the interests of our own people first. We can, despite all the threats, despite all the bullying, we can win this referendum. We can win this referendum by saying to people, this may be the only chance you get in your lifetime to change the future of your country. Even if you've never voted before in your lives, please go out and vote on the 23rd of June and recognise this question of whether we govern our own country is not about whether you're on the left of politics or the right of politics. This is not about left and right. It's about right and wrong. It's about our country. It's about our destiny. And together we can take back our country and we can make June the 23rd, 2016, UK Independence Day. Thank you.